Welcome back to AM Northwest. It was one of the bloodiest battles of World War II. And while the United States won, it could have had a very different outcome if not for the contributions of a covert group of elite Marines. Their amazing story is detailed in the new book, 40 Thieves on Saipan. We welcome author Joseph Tachovsky. Good morning, Joseph. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Helen. How are you?
Good. This book, I understand, started out at the funeral of your father.
Correct. A eulogy that a gentleman delivered at the funeral was very jaw-dropping and as well as eye-opening about my father's service in the Pacific, which is something that he never talked about while he lived.
So tell me, what was the jaw-dropping part of it?
About how he saved the lives of every man in this 40 Thieves platoon. It was just something that was rather chilling to be delivered at a funeral.
Yeah.
And after that is what prompted me to open his footlocker and found the roster for the 40 Thieves on Saipan. And what was most noteworthy about it were his handwritten notes as far as who had been sick from malaria, who had been wounded, and then also who had been killed in action.
Wow. Well, that moment that you talk about where he saved everyone's life on that platoon, it is an incredible scene. So can you describe that scene to our viewers?
Well, a Japanese tank had broken through the lines, and the Marines had nothing to fight it with. And it kept advancing, and the machine guns from the tank were just strafing fire, and everyone thought that they were goners. And my father knew that there were where troops were located because of the nature of leading this platoon, and he knew where he thought he could find a bazooka team. So he found the bazooka, grabbed it away after arguing with that lieutenant for a while, ran out into the withering fire, shot the bazooka, disabled the tank, and killed the crew inside. And it was a fellow named Alfred Junker who told this story. Yeah. And was the Marine sergeant that relayed it to everyone at the through the eulogy.
Amazing, amazing. They were originally called, though, the Terrors. Why? Right? Was that what that was in an article?
Well, they weren't. Beneath that article, I first found that article after the funeral, and I did an online search, and there was this article posted from the December 1944 Leatherneck. And beneath it was a text posted by a fellow named Chris Timpton. And in it, he said, "This was my father's platoon during World War II. And everything in it is true, except we were never known as terrors. The other Marines of the 6th Regiment always referred to them as the 40 Thieves."
And why is that?
Well, Marines of World War II in general were notorious thieves. They were the poorest equipped branch of service, and they found it necessary to steal, which they referred to as acquiring by Marine methods, anything that they needed, either from the better equipped Army or Navy. And since these 40 men were the elite of the 6th Marine Regiment, they were evidently a lot more proficient and daring in their nefarious deeds. While training on Hawaii, they stole a pig so they could have a barbecue on the beach and watch the sunset. They also stole an Army captain's Jeep so they could use it to drive to a Navy depot and steal booze. And probably their greatest coup was before leaving Hawaii for the Battle of Saipan. They stole 2 Army soldiers. There were 2 fellows at Schofield Barracks that were buddies with one of the corporals of the platoon. And the night before, they went out and got drunk and thought it was a good idea to become Marines for the invasion of Saipan. So they went AWOL.
Your mother was dating your father at the time? Right? Is that right?
Well, they'd actually been married, but they
okay.
had only been married about a month before he got sent off for Guadalcanal, and then they wouldn't see each other again for over 2 years.
And there was a story of your dad getting someone to do a portrait of her.
Well, it was actually a birthday gift for him by Joe Dulcich, who was a fellow lieutenant. They went to OC class together and became lieutenants together. And he did a charcoal sketch of my mother that he gave to him on Dad's birthday in February of '44. They were on a little 3-day leave in Hilo.
I brought her up because I thought, didn't she lecture him on not drinking so much?
Well, that came after the battle,
okay,
where he was writing a lot more about how much he'd been drinking, and his response to that don't worry about my drinking. It's actually the only way we can get through this and still have our wits and sanity.
Right. There's some Northwest ties here. So Lonnie Jackson from Centralia, tell me about him.
Well, Lonnie was the shortest guy in the platoon, but he was tough as nails, and you daren't ever call him Squirt. One of the bigger guys, Wild Bill Emmerich, once jokingly called him Squirt, and the next thing he knew, Lonnie Jackson had him on the ground and he was crying uncle. But he was just 5'3" tall when he first went to enlist, which wasn't tall enough for the Marines. You had to be 5'4" tall. So he went home and he stretched himself for 1 week. He tied cinder blocks to his feet and hung from a tree, and the next time he went in, he was 5'4" tall, and he became a Marine.
And I have to quickly get to Herbert McBride, who was from Oregon.
Correct. He settled in Williams, Oregon after the war, and he faked his birth certificate. He was only 15 years old when he enlisted, but he always carried himself older than his years, and he also looked much older than his years. I mean, that photo that you just showed there, it's striking to think that those are 18 and 19-year-old kids.
Yeah, but amazing.
Guadalcanal and Tarawa, they aged a lifetime.
We want to tell everyone the book is called 40 Thieves on Saipan, and also half of all the royalties from the book go to support various veterans organizations across the U.S. Joseph Tachovsky, thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen.